Hey everyone, this is Stacy with SF Johnson Consulting and Construction Services, and I thought I would take a quick break on the estimating, just a small break, to talk about some safety issues related to our concrete and masonry standard, which is 29 CFR 1926 subpart Q, which are the OSHA standards related to any the work that you're doing when you're performing the work, or any concrete or masonry work, and some of the standards. And what we always like to do is, first of all, what are the hazards that are possible when you're performing the scope of work? So I've outlined about 8 of those, and they're really easy to take care of. So one of the hazards are chemical burns. So if you are, and I saw a lot of video yesterday where we're mixing the concrete, or we're even pouring it or from the dump truck or whatever, and nobody's wearing gloves, and they're just putting their hands all in the concrete. So proper PE, right? Gloves, and then you may pop that in your eye, so eye protection and hand and body protection. So the proper PPE would solve that problem. Most importantly, the damage or injury from the silica dust, so respiratory irritations and illnesses, and that is the biggest one when it relates to concrete and cutting the concrete. And the standards that have changed, I believe, in 16 or effective in 18, where you have to use a water feature when you're cutting the concrete. You just can't let the silica dust just go all everywhere, because that affects the worker and the community and everybody. So 3 injuries from improper lifting. So our ergonomics standards would apply. Move smarter, not harder. There's an ergonomics class that I think we have on video too, for you to look over, and what are the standards and what are the things that you should think about. And ergonomics is the way that we move our body, right? And so depending on what you do, you move your body in certain ways that could injure yourself. So form blowout, that's number 4. What is that? That is concrete's pretty heavy, and if the form work isn't properly placed and secured, the forms blow out, they break, and the concrete goes everywhere. I saw a nice one yesterday, but at that point you're just running around trying to scoop up all the concrete so it doesn't harden wherever it blew out. And so, you can have injuries from improper lifting on that. You can have respiratory problems, chemical burns, all of that from the blowout. And then that's kind of stupid and funny at the same time. Injuries from falling objects, of course. If you're doing platforms, slabs above grade, you have to worry about objects falling as well as you falling. So the proper fall protection training, as well as proper struck by identification, knowing when there's a possibility of a struck by or caught in between. And so those are all things that, if you are taking this OSHA concrete masonry class, you've already taken the focus for the struck by, electrical, falls, and caught in between. So you've already taken that, so you'll be familiar with the ways to protect yourself from falls. And then lastly, the vehicle accidents, especially with the when we're dropping the concrete, right, just straight out of the chute, we're backing up the vehicle, we run over somebody, or the mechanism we use to pour the concrete isn't secure and it breaks off and stuff goes everywhere. So there are, of course, OSHA standards related to motor vehicles. And last but not least, goes kind of with when you're cutting the concrete, you want to make sure you have protection for your ears, protection from noise. So I want to just quickly show this. We have a couple videos, but one is the silica dust is the one that's most important. So I'm just going to show it on this video, and I'll mute myself, and then we'll wrap it up.
Crystalline silica is one of Earth's most common minerals. It is found in stone, brick, rock, concrete, block, mortar, asphalt, and sand. Using power tools on these materials for tasks such as cutting or grinding can release tiny particles of silica into the air. These tiny particles are known as respirable crystalline silica. Workers who breathe in respirable crystalline silica can develop diseases that can be life-altering or deadly.
Traditionally, on construction sites, silica with grinding and cutting produces a lot of dust. It gets into the workers' lungs.
Exposure to respirable crystalline silica can cause silicosis, a disease that permanently scars the lungs. It can also cause lung cancer, kidney disease, or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, also known as COPD. The chances of developing these diseases increase with higher and longer durations of exposure.
What we're looking at on the left is a normal lung. You can see that the lung tissue on either side of the heart is dark and black, and that means it's full of air. And the X-ray on the right, you can see those white scars throughout the lungs on both sides. That's all scar tissue. Is from a patient with advanced silicosis.
Without protection, workers who are exposed to very high levels of respirable crystalline silica during activities such as abrasive blasting with sand can develop silicosis within a period of months to a few years. Workers usually do not develop signs of silicosis until after they have been exposed for 10 years or more. Once silicosis symptoms, such as shortness of breath, appear, the symptoms can get worse over time, even after the worker stops working with silica.
Usually people who develop silicosis have been very healthy, vigorous people, and they find after years of the disease that they're short of breath, that they can't go very far, they can't walk very far, they can't climb the stairs. They may even be short of breath just sitting still. I continue to see new cases of silicosis, and yet there is still no treatment. So I would like to see prevention of silicosis so that this disease is eliminated from our hospitals and our health clinics.
Silica disease can be prevented by controlling exposure to silica dust. Water can be used to wet the dust and prevent it from getting into the air. Vacuums can be used to remove the dust at the point where it is made.
We stir up a lot of dust, so we try to prevent as much of it getting in the air as possible. So we use these vacuums. But while we're working on cutting the joints out, we create a lot of dust, which we collect in the vacuums inside these bags. Much rather have it in this bag than I would inside my lungs.
Once I tried the new things, it worked well, because at the end of the day, I went home without silica dust in my lungs. I went home clean at the end of the day, and I got used to it.
Gary Sasse's family business is stone carving. His father and his grandfather both died of silicosis.
I believe that our industry here has worked hard to bring in new technology that does help with the silicosis problem. I also believe that there's also room for more education for the workers themselves to understand the critical reasons why they have to be very careful in this industry.
In today's climate, we stress to our customers safety, financial stability, company stability. We remind our men we want them to go home same shape or better shape than when they showed up at work that morning.
OSHA's rule for respirable crystalline silica requires employers to protect workers from silica dust to prevent them from developing disease. Silica-related diseases can be prevented if proper controls are used to reduce workers' exposure to dust. More information on OSHA's requirements to protect workers exposed to respirable crystalline silica can be found at www.osha.gov/silica. For information.
All right. So, most definitely, that is our biggest issue. When you're tuck pointing, you're cutting that, you need to have either the vacuum system or the water feature system to keep that from going in your lungs. And whether they're cutting concrete, shaving down the sidewalks, you see that all the time. So definitely that is the biggest hazard when we talk about concrete and working with concrete is that silica dust. And a mask doesn't work unless it is like a scuba type thing where you're taking in all new fresh air. Okay, so if you do this for a living, like I said, it doesn't show up for 10 years. And then you pretty much counting your days after that. And one other thing I wanted to go over is when you're working on masonry walls, when you brick walls and you're building brick walls or CMU walls, there's a standard that there needs to be a limited access zone around that wall. So if I'm putting up a wall, the access zone has to extend from the wall. The height of the wall plus 4 feet. So if you're building a 8-foot wall, your access zone, you have to extend out or close out that 8 plus 4, 12 feet outward from the wall, where you limit access where people can't walk. Okay, so that's another really important standard when it comes to our concrete masonry, just in terms of avoiding violations, right? We want to avoid violations. And you can't avoid a violation if you're sitting there in a cloud of silica dust and you're cutting the concrete. You're pretty much done. Okay, so you want to be able to avoid violations, limited work zones, proper PPE, all that good stuff. And two, this is just one part of what would be your OSHA 10, OSHA 30 training. So just wanted to give you a little heads up on, what you would study and, really what's the most important. They have standards for slab lift operations, limited access zones, type of equipment, the standards for the equipment. So again, you can get all of this directly from the OSHA website, even if you are not getting your certification, just so you'll know. Or please do, or you should. Your employer should make sure you're certified if you're doing this for a living, and it's a requirement that you have a training program. So if you have any questions in regards to this or any other issue, please let me know at education@sfjohnsonconsulting.com. And also, please let me know what you think and subscribe and all that good stuff. And I will see you at the next safety video.